Look what Peter says, for this reason. For the Lord's sake, submit to all human authority. It is God's will that your honorable lives should silence those ignorant people who make foolish accusations against you. That would include authority that He's telling you to submit to. You know, as a parent, the toughest thing that you can witness is your child being picked on. And I'm looking at Addison back there. I'm so proud of Addison. Great preacher of the gospel. Oh my goodness, can he preach? And he's got a revelation on holiness that's just amazing. But you know, Addison was not always this 30-year-old massive man who's much larger than me now, okay? When he was 9 years old, he was in 3rd grade in a very, very good Christian school. And for some reason, he got a teacher that the only way I can explain it is the teacher just right off the bat didn't like Addison. Their personalities must have conflicted. Night after night after night, Addison would come back from school, sometimes with tears in his eyes, telling Lisa and I how badly he'd been treated by this teacher. I mean, the whole class would be cutting up, and the teacher would reduce it down to Addison and yell at Addison. There would be situations that would occur if it was a group of kids, and Addison would get singled out and severely disciplined. And I mean, it was night after night we were hearing this. We were trying to encourage him. Lisa and I were certainly praying, because as a father, I wanted to go and punch the lights out of the teacher. Because you see, Addison had always been a really good student and a great young man. I mean, we'd never had problems with him. So, you know, I wasn't being the parent that was blind to my son's, problems. I mean, this teacher didn't like him. So the straw that broke the camel's back occurred one day when Addison came home. And what had happened was 2 boys that were sitting right behind him were messing off. They were talking to each other and goofing off. And the teacher's back was to the class. And when the teacher turned around, they quieted down real quick. And the teacher started yelling at Addison. And Addison hadn't done a thing. So now big old alligator tears are running down his eyes. Of course, Lisa goes, "Oh, my son, my son." And she's got him in her arms. And I'm sitting there at the dinner table. And all of a sudden, inside, I thought, I need to share with him a lesson I learned the hard way. And I felt this. I looked at Addison. I said, "Addison, when your teacher yelled at you today, how did you respond?" Oof, fire was in his eyes now. And he said, "I told my teacher it wasn't me, it was the 2 guys behind me." I said, "Do you always do that when he corrects you?" And Addison said, "Yeah, especially if he's wrong." And I said, "Son," I said, "what you're doing, it's not God's way. God's way is that He wants to defend you when it comes to authority." And I said, "If you've been doing this over and over again, you're not handling this the way God tells us to handle it." And he looked at me and he said, But what about if he's wrong?" And I said, "Well, let me ask you this, Addison. Has your way worked?" And he goes, "No." I said, "Do you want to do this God's way or your way? Do you want to defend yourself, or do you want to go to your teacher and apologize for constantly challenging his authority?" He looked at me and he goes, "I'll go to my teacher." So he makes an appointment with the teacher the next day at lunchtime. And he sits down with his 3rd grade teacher. He's 9 years old. And he said, "I am so sorry. God has dealt with me. I have constantly challenged your authority, and I'm wrong. Please forgive me for all the times I talked back to you." The teacher was blown away. Do you know who got outstanding student of the entire year in the class? Guess who? Addison. Now, if it works for a 3rd grader, how much more is it going to work for us? David is called a man after God's heart because he allowed God to be the judge when it came to authority.